She pulsed her restless fingers against her thigh, while the candidates positioned the prisoner beneath the noose, saluted the admiral, and retreated back to the courtyard. She was so close now. Victory dangled in front of her like a fisherman's hook. The admiral lifted a fist. The drums stopped. Silence fell. All eyes landed on the man in chains who waited with his head bowed. In the colorless courtyard, he was a parrot among ravens. His loose-fitting clothes were an obnoxious tangerine color, and every one of his fingers and toes, the man was noticeably barefoot, sported 3 silver rings. The candidates of La Academia knew his crime before it was even announced. Only one kind of person would dress with such a garish disdain for propriety. A pirate. "Captain Salvador Dominguez," the admiral boomed. "You have been found guilty of piracy, murder, and treason against the Empire of Luzan. Therefore, you have been sentenced by the High Court of el Ministerio de Justicia to hang by the neck until dead. Do you wish to repent for your crimes before your sentence is carried out?" For the first time, Captain Salvador Dominguez looked up. He was not a young man, falling somewhere between 40 and 50, with eyes like black mollusks and an overgrown nose. Most pirates were caught and killed long before they reached his age. His survival up until this point was indicative of his skill, just as his death would be indicative of Ximenas. "Repent," the pirate laughed. "What do I have to repent for, Admiral? I gave my life to the only cause worth dying for." He smiled at the admiral with blackened teeth. "Freedom. So no, I won't repent. Viva Gasparilla! Viva la libertad!" Gasparilla. The word struck the courtyard like a lightning bolt. An uncomfortable rustling moved through the assembled candidates. Declaring that name aloud, as everyone knew, was an act of treason. After all, it belonged to the most notorious pirate captain in the Luzan Empire's history. The man who had led the bloody Scarlet Siege against the capital island of Valusa and ransacked its silver vaults. Captain Dominguez sensed their fear. His black-toothed smile grew wider. "Viva Gasparilla!" he shouted again. "Viva la libertad!" Ximena frowned. A few years ago, the candidates of La Academia would have laughed at such a threat, and they would have been right to do so. Gasparilla was 200 years dead, caught and killed by the armada of Cazadores at the end of the Scarlet Siege. But whispers had traveled to Valusa from the furthest reaches of the archipelago, carried by merchants and fishermen and pirates alike. Whispers that infected the islands like plague. They said Gasparilla had returned. They said he'd been resurrected from the dead using el idioma prohibido, the forbidden language of magic. They said the legendary pirate was preparing to strike again. Even worse, pirates captured by the Cazadores had begun invoking Gasparilla's name just before their executions, in direct defiance of the Luzan Empire. They declared it boldly, proudly, in the same breath as liberty, as if the sound of it were a threat or a prophecy or a battle cry, as if they knew something the Cazadores did not. But the time for guessing games and superstition had long since passed. El Ministerio had delivered its verdict, and Dominguez was doomed to die. So the admiral raised his fist again, restoring order with a single glare. "Enough," he said. "The accused has elected not to repent for his crimes. Therefore, his execution will be carried out forthwith." Dominguez laughed again. "I hoped you would say that." He slipped his head through the noose. The candidates let out a collective gasp. No pirate had ever noosed himself before. "Well," said Dominguez, raising his eyebrows. "Dispatch me to a better world, Admiral. Then we will have both done one another a great service." The admiral ignored him. He was far too noble to engage with a pirate's antics. "Trevada Reale," he said. "Carry out your orders." It was time then. Ximena moved to the